Hello everyone, my name is Maxim. In this presentation I will explain Kant's deontological ethics and apply his idea of the categorical imperative to a simple everyday situation, cutting in line at a supermarket. Although this example seems small, Kant's ethical theory helps explain why actions like this can still be morally wrong. First, I will briefly explain what deontology is and how Kant understands morality. Then I will introduce Kant's categorical imperative and the three formulations he used to explain it. Finally, I will apply these principles to the supermarket scenario and explain why Kant would consider cutting in line morally unacceptable. Deontology is an ethical theory that focuses on duties and moral rules instead of consequences. Immanuel Kant is the philosopher most closely associated with this approach. According to Kant, the moral value of an action depends on the principle behind the action, not simply the outcome it produces. As Matthews and Hendricks explain in Introduction to Philosophy, Ethics, Kant believed that moral rules must apply universally to all rational individuals. Kant distinguishes between two types of rules called imperatives. Hypothetical imperatives depend on personal goals. For example, if you want to pass an exam, you should study. The rule only applies if you want that goal. Categorical imperatives are different. They apply to everyone regardless of personal desires. Kant believed that morality is based on one fundamental principle called the categorical imperative. He explained this principle through three different formulations. Each formulation expresses the same moral idea in a different way and helps us evaluate whether an action is morally acceptable. The situation we will analyze is cutting in front of someone while waiting in line at a supermarket. Most people think this behavior is rude or unfair. Kant's ethical framework helps explain the deeper moral reason why this action is wrong. The first formulation of the categorical imperative is called the principle of universal law. Kant argues that before acting, we should ask whether the rule behind our action could be followed by everyone. If the rule only works when a few people break it, then it cannot be a moral rule. To apply this principle, we identify the maxim behind the action. In this case, the maxim might be, when I want to save time, I cut in line. Now we imagine what would happen if everyone followed this rule. If everyone cut in line whenever they wanted to save time, the system of waiting in line would collapse. Because the rule destroys the system it depends on, Kant would say this action cannot be universalized. The second formulation says that we must treat humanity always as an end in itself and never merely as a means. This means we must respect the dignity and autonomy of other people rather than using them simply to achieve our own goals. When someone cuts in line, they ignore the time and effort of the people who are already waiting. The person treats others like obstacles instead of individuals who deserve equal respect. From Kant's perspective, this behavior fails to respect other people as ends in themselves. The third formulation is known as the kingdom of ends. Kant asks us to imagine a moral community where everyone follows universal moral rules and respects others as rational individuals. In such a community, cooperation depends on fairness and mutual respect. If people constantly ignored rules like waiting in line, social cooperation would break down. Cutting in line undermines fairness and trust within society. Using Kant's three formulations, we can see why cutting in line is morally wrong. The rule cannot be universalized because it would destroy the system of waiting in line. The action treats other people merely as a means to save time, and it undermines fairness and cooperation in society. These explanations are based on the course materials including Matthews and Hendricks and the Ethics Defined video by the Macomb School of Business.